This is K4ATZ, and today I'd like to do a review on the TRAM model 1185 amateur dual band 3 1/4 inch magnet kit. This is a dual band antenna, especially useful for technician class amateurs who are have the ability to use the VHF and UHF amateur radio bands. I've been a licensed ham for 40 years, since I was about 10-11 years old, and I can remember when the first magnetic mount antennas came out. The most popular ones were made by a company called Larson, and I think they're around still today. And Larson antennas, some of the best, used by commercial, police, etc. And a lot of their antennas have different mounts, not only different mounts like magnetic or lip mount for the trunk, but they had different connectors. In other words, they have one called an NPO mount, and that has to do with how the antenna fits together with the base. This particular type of mount is called a 3/8, and it just incorporates a screw end, male and female. But the reason I want to do a review on this antenna was for several reasons. Unless you're going to spend a lot of money nowadays, which I really wouldn't recommend doing for a mobile antenna, this is generally what you get now. They have these micro magnets, very small. This one's about the size of a quarter. They're very strong, and they have an extremely thin whip. I don't know if you can even see that, and you see the end piece there. And they have a thinner than average wire. To be honest, I don't even know what the name or gauge is. Like a mini. It's smaller than a mini RG8. And then they'll have a variety of ends on them depending on what you need. This particular one, I think, is a Nagoya. I'll give you one guess of where that's built. And it has a BNC type connector on the end, which a lot of HTs will have. However, you can buy all kinds of different adapters, and this particular one is a BNC to PL259 connector. PL259 being one of the most common connectors. So you just basically put it on, and then it goes right in your radio. Now, these are fantastic antennas because they're stealthy. You don't see them often. They do the job, and they're relatively inexpensive. Probably for a dual band like this, I think this one was about 25 bucks. You can maybe get them a little less than that. But here's the thing. As good as these are, my cat likes to play with this thing, so. But as good as these are, they're really pretty cheap. They do not recommend that you use over about 50 watts with them. The wire is very thin, and on the high frequencies you are going to have some loss in this wire. And because even though it's a strong magnet, because it's so small, if you just nick a branch or something, it's going to come off. I mean, they do not stay on as well as the TRAM that we're going to review in a minute. So it does have an Allen wrench, so if you break your whip, you can replace it. But these things really break a lot. They do unscrew, and it's not your typical type mount, because this is just a very small screw on the end, and then of course here as well. So the positives on an antenna like this is the cost is low. It's stealthy, hard to see. You can get them in plain 2 meter or UHF or dual band, as this one is. It's easy to shut the car door in this because it is small. On the negative side is it can fall off very easily when it's just knocked. You're going to have a lot more loss in the line because it's thin. And just generally, it's just not a heavy-duty type antenna with wattage. But years ago, when Larson, the company I was telling you about, came out with the antenna, they came out with the antenna. It was basically a rectangle type magnet. It had 2 strips on it, and the bottom was like a basically it was like a aluminum foil type finish to it. Now that could scratch the surface of your car. These are much less likely to scratch your surface of your car unless it gets knocked off and gets banged around. But fairly shortly after, Hustler and a lot of other companies started coming out with their version of the magnetic mount, and they came out with some nice 2 meter ones that were 5/8 wave, which have more gain into the antenna. But this is a new modern day antenna, and I was very surprised because I got this particular one on Amazon. It was 17 bucks and change, including shipping, and I think you had to do 25 minimum, so I had another small object or something that I wanted or needed. And when I got it, I wasn't expecting much more than this, if that. And this one did cost more, but when I got it, I was like, you know, it's nice to see something made like it used to be made. Made with quality and the size. Not that, you know, it should be better, but this whip, I don't know what the gauge is, but I can tell you right now, this whip is probably 5 times thicker than this other whip. Now, yes, it's going to be seen more, and yes, you know, it's not as stealthy, but I'll tell you something. You've got a nice big magnet, and this is not just one little quarter piece of magnet. This whole piece here, this whole round section here is the magnet. It's a dual band antenna. If you want to leave the antenna, or excuse me, the mount, and take the antenna, it does unscrew like I showed you a minute ago very quickly, so you can take your actual whip. But it's a small whip, so you probably can get in most garages unless you have an SUV. And then you could always, of course, put it on your hood of your car. The best placement for magnetic mounts is in the center top of your car for the best radiation pattern. This one's got a little coil in it, kind of patterned after the old cellular looking antennas. Nowadays, I would guess, unless you're in a really bad section or some kids just want to be mean, people are probably going to leave it alone. But you're going to have less likely chance if you hit a little branch or something, even with a thick antenna, of it coming off, because you really have a nice magnet on there. And if you notice, the cable is thicker than the cable for this other one, a lot thicker. And what that means is you have lower loss. Now in the car, sometimes you need the small one, but the small is going to be prone to shorting more. It's going to have higher loss, and just all in all, it's just not as good a quality. This particular one I went ahead and bought with the PL259 on the end. So for my particular radios, I don't need an adapter. If I'm going to use one of the HTs, I'll need an adapter to make it either BNC or SMA. The Chinese radios have a little different, but they're $3, $4, $5 adapters, and you should probably have a couple of those if you're a ham operator anyways. So also, I don't know the length of this cable, but the cable is actually looks longer than the well, here we go, 12 foot. It's shielded RG58AU. So you actually get a better quality cable, which is lower loss. You have a dual band antenna, which has 2.5 dB gain UHF, and let's see, well, 2.5 gain, I think that's VHF, and it says unity gain, or unity gain VHF. Maybe it's the opposite, I'm sorry. I think it is the gain for the UHF, which is 435 to 450, and it's pre-tuned for 144 to 148, and then 435 to 450. And this product is made in Taiwan. Now, Taiwan, China, Japan, Korea, wherever. But with all this mass production coming out of China, I really think Taiwan is a better quality product. And I can tell you, from this product right here, and I know there's Comet and Diamond and Larson still around, and you can spend $100, $200 on a mobile dual band antenna. But for $17, this one, TRAM model 1185, go to Amazon and get you one of these. Even for a backup or a spare, you can't beat it with the cable and the sturdiness of this antenna. They just don't make these like this anymore for this price. So even though I have not used it, I can tell you already, with the way the cable is and everything, this is going to be a very nice antenna, very strong magnetic mount, and I'm just glad I had the opportunity to do a review for it and show you compared to some of these other things on the market, because usually these snap off right there, and you're going to have a hard time finding the whips. I guess maybe at a ham fest or something. I do not see them online, and so you're going to pay as much, just pretty much trash the antenna. You're going to be more prone to shorts and everything with these too. But to see something like this made nowadays, and not made in China, made in Taiwan, which I know China doesn't really care for Taiwan, is really a pleasure. So pick you up one of these, and we'll do some more antenna reviews with some other things. I'm going to go ahead and post this on YouTube. And I'm an advanced class license, which we're grandfathered in. It's between a general and extra. So even though I don't have all the privileges, I have most of them, and maybe one day I'll upgrade, but it just doesn't seem like it's worth it at this point. So 73s, and thank you for listening to our review for the TRAM model 1185 amateur dual band 3 1/4 inch magnetic kit antenna.